crossings.
Yeah, this is a totally new area. No one had looked over the Gulf of Aqaba for the Red Sea crossing, for instance. So he hired an airplane and asked the pilot, Moses.
Moses.
Yes, Moses. Now,
I love it.
He said, Moses, is there a way for the children of Israel to go to these mountains here along the eastern edge of the Sinai Peninsula? And Moses said, yes, I know the spot.
I'll bet Moses knows the spot.
Yeah, he sure does. And so they went down to the beach at Nuweiba, a large,
yes.
5-mile long beach that juts out 3 miles into the Gulf. And he said, there's Wadi Watur that goes through the mountains and empties onto this beach. It's about a 30-mile drive through the mountains. We've been through there.
Now, the Wadi Watur, a wadi essentially is a dry, deep cavern.
Like a canyon,
yeah.
And they snaked their way there to the Red Sea crossing site. So, and while he was there, he found this column marking the spot.
A column? Like what kind of column?
It was a pillar erected by Solomon, he found out later.
Okay.
Okay, and then the next time they went there, they found chariot wheels in the water. So on that second trip they made there, with the first dive, they found the chariot wheels. He had to leave. He was going back to Jerusalem to fly out. And it's at that point then that God performed a miracle. He raised Ron's arm in the Garden Tomb grounds, and Ron said, there's Jeremiah's grotto, and the Ark of the Covenant is in there.
So wait a second.
Yeah,
so this is, he's being led from one adventure to another. This is like real-life Indiana Jones here.
Right. And so he conducted the dig later and did find the Ark of the Covenant. But let's take a look at this. From 77 to 78, he found out the location of Noah's Ark.
Mm-hmm.
He found the Red Sea crossing spot. That then told him for sure Mount Sinai is over in Saudi Arabia. And God raised his arm and put the words out of his mouth. There's Jeremiah's grotto, and the Ark of the Covenant is in there. He said that in 78. Within 1 year, he had found, through the Lord's leading, these 4 incredible discoveries. God was truly using him.
That is unreal. So obviously now, because people have been searching for these things from, for centuries, for thousands of years. You know, there's always the legend of the chalice that Christ used at the Last Supper. You know, all of these type of things. You know, where's a piece of the cross? Everybody's always looking for relics.
Yes.
But Ron was not looking for relics' sake, was he?
No, he was wanting to do the Lord's work. And the Lord had a plan for these things to come out. These discoveries, they all deal with judgment in the past. Okay, at the flood, God judged man, had to destroy the wicked, but he saved his faithful. Sodom and Gomorrah, he judged the wicked, destroyed them. He saved his people. The Red Sea crossing, he saved his people, destroyed the wicked. Mount Sinai, he handed down the law, spoke it, and wrote it. And then, of course, the Ark of the Covenant contains that same law that we'll be judged by. So these are signs of past judgments. Why does he want them to come out? It's because the judgment of the living is coming soon, where we'll receive either the seal of God or the mark of the beast. So God has a plan. These are all going to be shown to mankind before God judges everyone.
And on the opposite side of that judgment is obviously deliverance, which also happened in each one of those Bible stories.
He saved his people through these judgments.
You know, it's no wonder that people look at Ron Wyatt's discoveries and say, well, how could one man find all of these in a span of a year or so?
Right, and it's sad to even hear Christians saying that. You know, there's a lot of people out there that think God is no longer involved in miracles. That's a thing of the past. He's not doing major miracles anymore. But in this case, you see miracle after miracle where God used Ron and assisted him. And so it's very exciting.
So now you had run into Ron. Now Ron did this in 1978, 79, and he also ventured into Arabia and was arrested. We'll get into all that later.
Yeah.
But you ran into him in about, what was it, 1984?
1984.
Okay.
He had been released from the Saudi Arabian prison where he and his sons had crossed over by foot to go to Mount Sinai.
Right. Now they were looking for Mount Sinai in Arabia and basically got caught. What are you doing here? And they accused him of espionage,
being
right?
an Israeli spy, which is totally false, you know. But so he had been released from prison. He's been in prison 76 days. And of course, he made the national news. And he had a presentation at a church in Nashville Tennessee. And that's where I met him. I really felt impressed these things were real. And so I started following his work for years, reading his newsletters, going to presentations, calling him on the phone. But sadly in '99 he passed away. But the discoveries, since they're real, they continue on. And people are learning more and more that they really are authentic.
So when you first met him in '84, did you have a chance to talk to him? Did you have any idea that you wanted to promote his work at that point? Or were you just sort of a curious onlooker and just a participant in his talks?
Well, that was my first taste of it, but I really felt impressed that they were real. And I did talk to him a little bit, but just kept following it, kept going to presentations. And the more I got into it, the more I saw that this is real. You know, this isn't something made up. And when something's as exciting, as big as this, you know God is involved. And that's been the case.
Indeed. So when you met him in '84, and then did you worked, or you got his newsletter and everything until he died. Did you ever work with him before he passed away?
No, not directly, no. But I did, like I say, call him on the phone, ask him questions, talk to other direct supporters, see what was going on and so forth. But after he died, in 2000, I started my website, arkdiscovery.com. And so I started promoting the discoveries and then going over to the sites. And one thing after another, it was just as he said. I found man-made metal on Noah's Ark, finding the brimstone in Sodom and Gomorrah, and cremated bone. So these things are real. Now you had in '84. You went to see him, and as you mentioned now, it's just led to a lifelong passion, and it has led to some, well, you said you're retired now, and you do arkdiscovery.com as a, more than you don't want to call it a hobby, it's a part-time job. It's a passion, yes. It's a passion, yeah, that's even better. Yeah. And you got, just like any of us, you've got 2 grown kids, yes, a wife, so, and you're doing all these travelings. So let's go back to way back when this all started. What even possessed you to go see Ron Wyatt in 1984? What was the fascination? Well, I heard about the presentation taking place, and Noah's Ark, what, And, had you been an archaeology buff as a kid? No, it just, got my interest. Okay. And, these are major things. This isn't a little piece of pottery found in some, normal dig someplace. These are huge discoveries that threaten the forces of darkness. And we've seen over the years how Satan has tried to discredit Ron, tried to discredit the discoveries. But when you're working with God's things, you have to expect these false accusations to come up. So you go to this presentation in '84. How old are you then? I was 24. 24 years old. So you're just a young guy, straight out of college. Yeah. Okay, starting a career, and you hear of this thing. So along the years, did it ever occur to you, well, gosh, maybe I should be helping Ron? Did you want to help him before he passed away? Well, it took time and money, and I didn't have either. So time ran out, when Ron passed away. It was sad. But then I started going to the sites. A tour group opened up in 2000, first time going to Noah's Ark in like 8 or 10 years. And so I've been back there several times since. But it's all incredible, and it's all real, Scott. Wow, that is just unreal. And so now, he's doing all these discoveries, but that's not his full-time job. As we mentioned earlier, Ron is not an archaeologist. That's right. He was a nurse anesthetist. But so he would work a month or 2 in Nashville, take most of that money, and head overseas to work on these discoveries. Back and forth for 22 years doing this. Wow. And he spent approximately $1 million working on the discoveries, and 120 to 130 trips overseas. If you can imagine going overseas 120, 130 times, that right there wears you out. That is a worn-out passport, if nothing else. Yeah, living out of a suitcase, for half of your life, half of the... Goodness, what did his wife think of all this? Did you ever talk about that? Well, she's been a big supporter and a big help to him. Okay. Yeah. Is she still with us? She is, yes. Marinelle Wyatt Lee. Okay. Yeah. So, but Ron totally devoted to this, putting his time in it, putting his money in it. And when someone is doing that much, and everything he's saying, one thing after another, is found to be true. The man's humble, authentic, very genuine Christian. A lot of people can see that when he's doing a presentation, speaking at a church. They can see that he's a genuine, humble Christian man.
So he's going now. He's a nurse, anesthetist. So he's he's not living below the poverty line. He has some money to spend, and obviously he did that with his trips. I understand by looking at your website, arkdiscovery.com, that when Ron was with us, I mean, his home looked very humble. He lived in he chose to live in a duplex.
That's true. I mean, he lived in a duplex, if you can imagine, a humble little duplex with large bookcases with all these archaeology books, historical books where he would do research and so forth. So he was putting his money where his mouth was and putting it into the work, devoting his life to this. So you knew that this man was telling the truth. You can see the 4 major discoveries: the Noah's Ark, Red Sea crossing, Mount Sinai, Sodom and Gomorrah. Those are visible things that you can see are real. Now, the Ark of the Covenant, some people have had a lot of doubt, but his credibility was established. God showed that he was working with Ron, and when Ron comes out with a report from the Ark of the Covenant cave, we need to respect that. On the Day of Atonement, when a priest went into the most holy place, he didn't take a committee in there with him to anoint the most holy. He went in by himself to do the Lord's work and came out with a report. Ron did the same thing. He went into the most holy place, got to see the Ark of the Covenant, and he came out with a report. And so we should respect that.